Hello everyone, we just got back from CanJam New York 2025. I have here with me Listener, FC Construct, GoldenSound, and myself, and we're going to tell you all about the experiences that we had listening to all of the new gear, as well as give you our impressions of the show generally and talk about all the fun things that we got to experience along the way. For those unaware, CanJam is one of the world's leading trade shows in headphones and audio, where those of us who get to go, we get to experience all of the new and exciting headphones that get released. So without further ado, let's get into our CanJam New York 2025 wrap-up video. How was your guys' show?
It felt like it went by in about 30 seconds. This is probably the fastest CanJam, even though it's same length, but it feels like it went by faster than any other show I've done.
Yeah, I gotta agree there. It was very busy, breakneck pace. It was over before it began, really.
Same here. I mean, for me, I was pretty sleep deprived throughout all of it. I took a bus coming in, but I wasn't manning the booth as hard as you guys did, so it wasn't as, blink and you miss it kind of thing. But it did feel like after the second day kind of came, it's like, oh, we're done.
What would you guys say differentiated this CanJam from CanJams in the past?
I think just the number of people. This, as far as I'm aware, is the busiest CanJam that has happened so far, and especially on the Saturday, you could tell the hall was absolutely packed, and props to you guys that were manning the booth the whole time. I was unfortunately stuck upstairs in a hotel room because we were doing the Imperial GoldenSound in there. But the few moments I did peek my head in, and it looked like you guys could hardly breathe.
Yeah, so for folks unaware, we had the Headphones.com booth right front and center there, and along with the Headphones.com booth, we also had Pud, who makes these crazy custom headphones, and he had all of his headphones laid onto the table next to us as well. So we had a ton of folks coming in, trying headphones at the Headphones.com booth, but also trying Pud's headphones. And then, listener, you also had the B&K 5 and 2.8. You were a booth babe, but effectively the 5 and 2.8 was the booth babe, where folks were getting you to measure their headphones on the 5 and 2.8. What was that experience like for you?
Vince from B&K lent us a 5128 to have on the show floor. So we were able to measure a ton of stuff from our community members, friends, some of the stuff we had at the booth as well. Yeah, it was a lot of good data. It was a lot of fun to finally get time with a 5128 where I'm kind of the person operating it. And yeah, very thankful that I was able to have the opportunity to do it.
So the question I have for you is, where did you and the 5128 go for dinner afterwards?
We went to this cute little Italian restaurant, had a nice candlelit dinner together. I only found out about halfway through that they're vegan, so they didn't have many options, but...
That's terrible. I hate this narrative. So of course, the main reason folks go to these CanJams is to try headphones and all kinds of audio stuff. There was some new stuff, but this year there wasn't as much new stuff as there maybe has been in the past, also partially because we've heard a lot of these things already. But I wanted to get a sense from you guys, what were sort of the standout products that you got to try at the show?
The first one that I actually really listened to was the Meze Poet. I hadn't really listened to too many Meze products before, but I thought that your review, Andrew, was pretty much right on point for what my experience was. The other thing off the top of my head that I really liked was a little brand called Hercules Audio, and their flagship product was the Meze. It's like a $4,000 IEM or something like that. They made a pretty interesting, pretty cool IEM, and I really enjoyed listening to that. Those two are kind of maybe the ones that stuck out in my mind for the stuff that I heard over the weekend.
You also heard the RAAL Magna, is that correct? What did you think of that one?
That one was a very interesting headphone. I went in without really knowing too much about the product. It is a ribbon driver headphone, and what really surprised me was how macro dynamic the presentation was. It hits really hard. It's like very defined in each note that lands. The bass extension is surprisingly really good. Like, it extends all the way down to the sub bass without any issues for me, and it's just so effortless doing so. However, there is a crazy mid treble peak somewhere that also blasts my ears and is extremely sharp. So I think if you listen to classical or any music that doesn't have hats and cymbals, you can get away with it. But otherwise, it's pretty painful. Overall, I don't really know what to think about it, but I kept listening to it a couple of times because I'm trying to figure out what exactly this headphone is.
Did you guys get a chance to listen to Chronicle's new CrinEar IEMs? Curious what you guys think.
So I heard the Meta first, then the Project Reference, and then Project Daybreak. Starting with Meta. Meta is a nice little metal shell IEM. I don't really know the price of it, but it's kind of similar to the Kiwi Ears KE4, where it has a pretty large bass shelf, warm, well-balanced mid-range, and a little bit of extra sparkle and kind of shimmeriness up top. Personally, I wasn't really a huge fan of this. It had too much bass and treble for me. The mids were solid, though. Really, the one that kind of blew me away was Project Reference. It had a little bit different of a treble profile, notably less bass, such that the whole thing sounded tighter, totally accurate in the mids, and, you know, nicely fleshed out across the board. I think that's the one that if I were to take any of them, I'd probably go for. It still has maybe a little bit too much bass and treble for me, but the fit was really nice, and I'm just hoping it's not like over $500. I think Project Reference is still a work in progress, so we'll see how that turns out. And then the last one I heard was Project Daybreak, which I also didn't really like. It had more bass like Meta, but the mid-range was a little bit more upward tilted, so it was a little bit more shouty and intense. I think that one probably needs to be zhuzhed a little bit to be a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
But overall, I think all of them are solid options. I just think Daybreak in particular probably needs a little bit more refinement.
I'll actually have a video coming out about his IEMs that I tried there. My impressions line up almost bang on with yours. Like, I think Meta is the one that most people are going to buy because it's got that sort of bass and treble thing, that excitement thing that people want. It wasn't for me because it got me in the lower treble spots that I don't like. Project Reference was really good, like shockingly good. And then Daybreak was a bit of a clang fiesta. Like, all generally within the realm of competence, but still like on that sort of more clangy side of things, which I did not prefer. So getting to some of the other products that we get a chance to hear, did anybody get a chance to try the FT7 from FiiO? I think it's one of their new higher end planars that they come out with.
I committed a cardinal sin and I measured it without listening to it.
Shameful.
Doug just scrambled over to me behind the booth holding it and he's like, FiiO gave this to me, I have 5 minutes with it, measure it please. So I measured it, it looks okay.
That was my sense of it. I actually think its strengths are the things that you maybe don't like from what you measured. Like, I actually think that it had a little bit of that kind of like mid-range forward flare that can sometimes lead to things sounding a little bit more detailed on the mids. But for me, I found certain areas in kind of the mid treble to be a bit on the like side of things, which weirdly they didn't measure all that, you know, problematic from what you were able to measure there. We'll eventually have the measurements of this probably posted on the forum, but we'll also try and get those in because I think to me, it was really interesting because it was a double-sided planar that was lightweight and it seemed reasonably ergonomic as well when I first sort of just put it on. And I thought, okay, this is actually like notably better than the FT5 overall. And I would say probably better than the FT1 Pro. But that's one where I'm not sure I'd need to actually spend time with it and compare them side by side. But yeah, from a general competency perspective, it was reasonable, but it's not free from foibles just from my initial listening impression.
Cameron, did you get a chance to hear this one?
No, so the only thing that I got to try at the show, unfortunately, was the new Sennheiser HT505. There's things which I really like about that. Similar to an HT600, I think that the sort of mid-range and timbre overall of vocals in particular is really, really good. But it also has some similar things to the HD600 series, which for me, I'm not so keen on, which I know doesn't line up with some other people's impressions, but I think that might just be something to do with the platform itself, because the HD560S, which is a similar kind of platform to this, I had quite different impressions on versus yourself, Resolve, actually. So it could just be something about this platform in particular that just doesn't really work with my ears. But yeah, for me, that one seemed like better than an HD600 in some ways. But then in other ways, I would say the treble, upper treble in particular, I prefer on the HD600 over this. So a little bit of a mixed bag.
For me, the 505 was one of the best headphones that I heard at the show, which, again, that's not necessarily saying that much about it. Like, I don't mean to say that it was like this amazing experience, but it was just generally solid and competent. And it's a headphone where I would say that it's appropriate for its price, but I still don't like it as much as the HD6 and so the HD6 X0. And it's partially because I don't like the chassis of the 505. And again, I agree with you, Cameron, completely. Like, there were things that it did better than the HD6 series, but overall, the things that the HD6 series did better were the things that I was more focused on. Like, for example, the treble performance. Like, for me, I actually don't hear it as particularly dark in the treble or particularly muted in the upper treble. For me, it's kind of the opposite. So I would not be surprised if there's some sort of variation across listeners. We'll make sure to have a written review of the HD505 in the near future here, I believe from listener, because you actually have one, right?
Yeah, and interestingly, my impression of it kind of bisects your impressions. Like, the upper treble for this headphone is my favorite thing about it. It's pretty much bang on perfect for me. So interestingly, it's not that warm in the mids. It's more so just dark at that specific upper treble region. Whereas in the lower treble, I feel like it's definitely gritty, papery, sandy, dry, all of those words.
That was my main complaint. And I think the other thing with that is, if you compare this to the HD6 series lineup, the HD6 series does sound warmer, even the HD600, because it has more of that presence around 200 hertz. Whereas this one is actually a little bit more like HRTF-y if you think about the bottom of the HRTF.
Yeah.
Like, it is actually more
Yeah,
technically like target adherent in that range, which means that it doesn't have that richness that the HD6 series happens to have. So for me, it was just like I just had a preference for the HD6 series. At the same time, the 505 was extremely competent sounding, like for the mids and for like the overall tonal balance. Like it seems like one of the few headphone releases in recent times that is like bang on where it should be priced, given the rest of what's going on, you know?
Yeah, so that's interesting. Like I heard it twice actually, once on each day, and I couldn't really wrap my head around it, to be completely honest. It wasn't bad by any means. I didn't think it was dark necessarily, but I did get that sense of like, you know, the lower treble did have quite a bit of presence. And to your point, Andrew, I did feel that, you know, HRTF-ness in the lower mids, where it's just a little flattened, and it really does push that upper mid-range a little forward.
For other products that were at the show, did anybody else get a chance to try the new Abyss headphone, the JOAL?
Yeah, I got a chance. I want to hear your thoughts first, actually.
Yeah, so the JOAL, while it still had some of that sort of like 5 kilohertz issue for me that some of the other sort of Diana-shaped headphones have, this one I thought overall had the sort of best overall balance out of all of the ones that I'd heard. In general, I would say like I had a good experience with it. My main concern is still to do with the mechanical design, or like the ergonomic design, where the top of the pads still press into my temples, and they don't actually have a pivot point for the yoke, so it's all just sort of one piece. And I get the reason why they do this, which is that is a common failure point, and they're trying to make headphones that last forever, right? But that does lead to it being less accommodating of different heads. My head shape is just one that it just does not work for that style, like the Diana style. They are, I think, aware of this. And I think that's also why like they're trying to make the pads solve this problem. That was still a bit of an issue. But for the sound, I actually thought that like it was notably better for me than the DZ, which I think was the most recent one that they released last year that I heard at Munich High End. I found that to be a bit of like a roller coaster in the treble, at least in situ for me. This one, the JOAL, was a lot less like that. This was just better across the board for the treble presentation. But what did you think, Caleb?
I'm the opposite of you. The JOAL fit me on my head the best out of any of the other Abyss headphones that they had. Like I cannot fit most of the other headphones, so this one was quite nice to me. And I agree, I think of all the Abyss headphones that I've heard, this one definitely sounded the best to me so far. The tuning, you know, I think it kind of goes to the name, right? Jack of all trades. I think that kind of categorizes this headphone. The mid-range was a little bit odd. I felt that it was a little recessed, a little pulled back, a little reserved, but not necessarily warm or really dark in that sense. I thought the bass was pretty good extension, and the treble was, you know, had a little bit of sparkle, but overall, nothing really much to say good or bad necessarily. It's just, I think it's probably the best release so far.
Just from the measurements alone, it does definitely seem like the most normal headphone in terms of tuning that they've put out. So I'm quite interested to hear it. I'm a little sad I didn't get to hear it at the show.
So I got a chance to try the new Grado headphone. Did anybody else get a chance to try that?
Ooh, I am very interested to hear your thoughts on this.
This sounded almost exactly like what you would expect from a Grado headphone. DMS and I, we both listened to it. We were sort of debating this afterwards. Like we were like, somebody, like we should have a conversation with them and try and like figure out what is actually going on, because it was just very, very sibilant. Overwhelmingly, it is difficult to listen to. I was not a fan of the new Grado. I also got a chance to try the new Audio Technica R30X. That's what I'm thinking of. It was just straight up treble. Like that's all it was. But the R50X, I thought that's exactly what I wanted them to do from an ergonomic perspective. The sound was okay, but the R30X was another Klang Fiesta. Did anybody try the Fosi Planar?
I did. So I wouldn't say it was good from my first impressions. It didn't stand out as being like, oh yeah, this is good, but it also wasn't like bad. It had a bit of a wonky mid-range, I think, and that'll be the biggest thing I think you'll notice in a graph. I'm very curious to see how it sounds like. What I was most interested about it is that it looks kind of like a Saspara, honestly, except it's like kind of black.
It's got that headband.
Yeah, the headband style, right? The hi-fi man egg shape, and it's $500. And it was comfortable.
Yeah.
It was very comfortable, and it wasn't like piercing in any way in the treble. It's just a mid-range. It's like kind of wonky.
What's funny is like I kind of had the opposite impression. I actually kind of liked the mid-range wonkiness. Like I will agree, there was something in the mid-range that was like not normal, but it reminded me a little bit of like the tungsten. And so I kind of like that. but the treble was fatiguing for me. So kind of like mid-treble-ish area. So not my usual sort of like lower treble problems. This was more in the sibilant range, yeah. But again, this was very much in the realm of competence. I thought the treble reminded me a little bit of the Venus, but the mid-range did not. So I'm curious how that one's gonna measure and how other people are gonna hear that one. But for me, it was like in the realm of competence. I thought there were some really good things about it, but the treble was a bit much for me. So we also had a number of seminars. Blaine actually gave 2 seminars. One of them was the one he'd given before, just for this event, but then he also had another seminar on the Sunday, which was sort of the other half of that. And it was, I would say a lot of it was about basically misconceptions that people have about frequency response and the Harman target. I'll try and have those seminars posted up on the forum. If you're looking for the seminar recordings, check our forum at forum.headphones.com. And that includes the Axel Grell seminar that was done as well.
So you guys had a chat with him after that, right?
Yeah, so we did also get a chance to chat with Axel Grell. He has some really cool ideas about what should go into the consideration for headphone tunings, and also like the rest of the stuff that goes into our perceptual faculties when we're listening to headphones is not included when we are evaluating headphones. Like when we're just looking at things like frequency response, we're not including all the rest of things like how open the headphone is. We're not including things like our mood, all these other things are relevant for psychoacoustics. So that's part of his idea there. I'll have again that seminar on the forum eventually. But also we get a chance to interview him afterwards. And yeah, we had a great conversation there. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel if you want to see the interview with Axel Grell. Did any of you guys get a chance to try Pud's headphones?
I tried the bass shaker. Guys, that was pretty fun. What I like about it is the effect that you get because it has, it extends out of your ears and kind of like comes back towards you, right? I thought that was pretty cool. You really do feel that like resonant effect of the bass notes. The other one I really liked was the one that kind of looked like the Jacqueline floats. They kind of like sit on your head. That was pretty fun. You got like a real big like soundstage effect from it. And it felt like it really surrounded your head. Kind of like the saying, no replacement for displacement kind of thing. But I thought it was pretty fun.
I did get a chance to quickly try Old Thumpy, because I've heard Old Thumpy before, but trying that with the BASS Medallion was a ridiculous experience. It's just absurd, and the grins on people's faces. I'm pretty sure that headphone, out of everything at the show, probably put the biggest grins on people's faces. It's always so much fun seeing Pud bring his stuff, and definitely attracts some crowds as well.
I have a question for listener, actually.
What's up?
You were chained to the booth, right?
Yes.
Doing measurements. But did you get a sense of the headphones that were on display there that people liked the most?
Most people coming to the booth were coming to the booth for the Poet and the Noir X. So, mostly the new stuff. What was interesting is at one point, Dr. Olive, Sean Olive, came over. Anytime he has a talk at the show, he'll come over to our booth and we'll get a chance to throw a few headphones at him. We got him to listen to the FT1, which he quite liked, and then the Focal Lejuris, which he didn't like until we put a capper strap on it, and then he quite liked it. And he was kind of shocked at how big of a difference the strap made due to the difference in clamp pressure.
And this is what you were saying. For folks with smaller heads, that is actually going to have a meaningful impact on the sound. Whereas folks with larger heads might not need it.
Yep.
Because they're already getting that clamp.
Yep.
What did you guys get a chance to do outside of the event? Just being in New York, having a good time in the city. We obviously had a ridiculous time at the Airbnb that was booked for us.
The pictures looked lovely. It looked like it was pretty spacious, had really nice views and stuff. We got there, one of the views of Central Park, which they included in the listing, just didn't exist. I don't quite know where that came from. The room that I was in, you couldn't open the door all the way because the room was so small that you open the door and it gets about 30, 40 degrees and then just hits the bed.
That's as far as she goes, boys.
What in the hell? Resolve almost died because the top step on the steep flight of steps was just loose. Andrew just nearly died.
Nice. Go down.
Yeah. Jesus Christ, that's like... okay.
The steep flight of steps that, by the way, was too narrow for bags to go up.
Me and Blaine had to carry my suitcase up and do the whole friend's pivot.
There's wet paint everywhere.
Yeah, there was wet paint as well. We don't know where, but Resolve got wet paint on his clothes. It was just a little bit of a calamity.
Yeah. No hot water.
No hot water.
No
we ended
hot
up moving to
water?
a hotel after that night, and it was a lot better.
Certainly built character. Yeah, my room didn't have, the heating didn't work properly, so I had to sleep in my jacket. And also the bed was at an angle. Basically, every time I try and fall asleep, I slide off the bed.
Jesus Christ.
So things just didn't work. Yeah.
So that was your Friday night, right? Because my Friday night was pretty good. After setup, which was fairly painless, I think. A few of us headed to the chicken spot we went to last year, Turntable Chicken Jazz, where we got that big group picture. So we went there again with a bunch of people, sat in the same room, had a nice dinner. As far as Saturday night, that's when we had the event at the Technica house, and it was awesome. It's a really cool space, but we had listening stations, we had pizza, we had drinks. It was just a great time, and honestly really needed, because Saturday was a pretty busy, hectic day, and I was pretty drained.
I was just gonna say, like, for me, maybe I've said this before for other CanJams, but like this one really was more about seeing everybody. And in saying that, I felt like I didn't get a chance to see everybody enough.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, we all agree on that.
In saying that, it's not like we didn't get to hang out with other people. Like I loved my time getting to chat with, all my friends, like Critical, like Mark Ryan, we saw Bad Seed Tech there. And then of course everybody on our team, like, DMS, and then unfortunately he's not able to be in this video because he's dealing with a bit of food poisoning.
Surprise, Andrew, I am in the video. And this video is brought to you by Headphones.com.
Mr. Critical,
Yes,
why should people buy from Headphones.com?
because they're great people. The premier audio shop in North America.
Well, the biggest reason is the 365-day return policy, but also the fact that the support is awesome, and you guys also will publish any review, like even negative ones, about stuff that you sell.
So I buy a lot of stuff from Headphones.com. I don't want to say too much. No such thing as too much. But so Headphones has it has all the top brands. If you understand this world, then you come to Headphones.com. You're like, okay, they have all the brands that I understand. If you're new to this world, go to Headphones.com, because you're gonna find everything from Focal and Dan Clark and for all the brands and all the amazing stuff, and the insane return policy, although I've never actually returned anything, but I hear it's great.
You can check out Headphones.com with a link in the video description. Back to the video.
I also want to give a shout out to Amos from Kurrawong. We don't normally get to see him because I think he lives in Japan, and so he doesn't usually come to these, but it was cool to see him there, and I got to chat with him a little bit too. So that's one of the benefits, the key benefits, I think, for folks like us. When we go to these events, they are a little bit of like a nexus for other people who you want to talk to who are working in this industry in some capacity, whether they are other reviewers in the media side of things, or if they're on the manufacturer brand side of things. That's what's awesome about these events, and it's why I look forward to going to them every time.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome to see Kurrawong. I've known him for quite a long time now, but I've never had the chance to meet him in person, so actually getting to meet up with him was pretty cool. I think he's going to be going to a few more events in the future as well. The best part of these is always the people, is always getting to see all of you guys, all of the people that we sometimes see at other events, but usually only get to see at these events. And that's the bit that makes it special. As Griffin said, I think we all agree that this time it felt like it went by way too fast and we didn't get to spend enough time with each other, but even so, these are the things which I look forward to all year round.
Yeah, we all wish we had more time with our friends, especially coming to this one as my first New York working. There were so many things about it that were great. I got to spend a decent amount of time with Vince from B&K. I really liked getting to spend more time with Scott Pledger this time as well. Scott, if you're watching this, you're my boy.
Caleb, any final closing thoughts?
For me, the biggest thing that I always take away from these events is, how strong of a community, or the community aspect of all of this is. This is the second CanJam I've been to. The first one I went to was a couple years ago. And this one I felt I could make a lot more connections. You see a lot of people, other reviewers online, like Mark Ryan, Super Review. I'd never seen him in person before. I knew he existed, and I finally got a chance to meet with him and chat with him. Same with Gadgety Tech.
Oh yeah,
I pronounce his name. Yeah, he was there too. I had a really brief moment to say hi. Like these, it's really fun to see these community. And I think the biggest thing for me of these CanJams that really invigorates me, I guess, is you get to meet people who really, I guess, share the same outlook as you, right? And I think that's what community is all about. It's like, what are you there for? Is to find a place where you can find people with similar interests, right?
And with all of that, that's going to wrap up this video, this year's CanJam New York 2025. Like a good sneeze, it has come and gone, and now we are looking forward to the next one. That's going to do it for this video. Thanks for taking the time to watch it. You can follow us on our various different social handles and stuff like that, but also make sure you guys check out the forum linked below, and you can join our Discord, and that's where you can chat with us and disagree with us about all of our terrible takes. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.